Wish you could buy a Hummer EV, but can't quite stomach that obscene price tag? Well, here is its cut price sibling, and still for a buttload of money, you can still get those 9,000 pounds of rare earth minerals. The Silverado EV is the second serious contender pickup to hit the market now. The Ford F-150 Lightning has been with us for a little while, of course, but that thing is getting to be a little long in the tooth. Respectable enough in range, albeit a little bit poor when it comes to fast charging. That is altogether an F-150 experience. It does everything it needs to, and in the higher trims, actually feels rather nice. So, how does the Silverado compare? Well, it feels rather like you've gone from an F-150 to a Silverado. It is not quite as nice in here. Ahead of us, we've got a full-width, heavy plastic dash with that glossy, very clearly not fooling anyone plastic finish. Below that, we've got a lot of screen. In this case, in this top model, 17 inches on the main central display. That pairs with an 11-inch display right in front of me, and then a 14-inch head-up display projected into the windscreen. Those displays are quite handsome. The new software looks really nice, but it's got some pretty significant shortcomings. Likewise, the head-up display shows all that you need to, but it still does that black pixel light pollution, light bleed when you're driving in the dark at night. You still see what becomes a bright gray square against a black background that actually impacts your night vision. It's not ideal. Down below, my complaints are what you'll expect if you know much about GM's EVs of late. GM, against all actual data, insists that customers don't really want Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. No, they want to use their native infotainment system, and statistically, no they don't. What is that system? Well, it's handsome. It's based on Android Automotive OS, but without that seamless integration that you would normally get through phone projection. Of course, the other caveat there is probably that GM doesn't get to sniff on the secure portal that runs that CarPlay from your phone to the screen. Now, with that tunnel cut out of the equation, they get to sniff all of your data, from your Spotify habits to your navigation. That's really valuable stuff when it comes time to possibly sell on to data brokers. Unfortunately, too, the privacy policies, which should be linked on General Motors' site, are broken, so it's hard to even see what they say you are or are not agreeing to in this or the Blazer EV. It's not all bad news, of course, because in these top models, you do get 3 years of General Motors hands-off, eyes-up Super Cruise. What that means on pre-mapped highways is that you can just sort of cruise about with your hands in your lap or gesturing rudely, eating a sandwich, what have you. You still have to be ready to take control, and it will flash and beep and scold if you actually take your eyes away or are watching little videos while your hands are distracted. But if you stay focused, it really relieves driver fatigue. It's a really nice way to cruise along the highway or just to make your way through traffic gridlock like I am today. And really, you've got to acknowledge that that's what this thing is gonna be about. Because these EV pickups still have a lot of shortcomings for the actual workaday tradesperson. Yes, these Silverado EVs can tow. Equipped in the right way, they can pull, as in the F-150 Lightning, up to 10,000 pounds out back. But, as in the F-150 Lightning, towing has a big impact on your economy. As our Benjamin Hunting found when towing his classic race car, even a low aerodynamic and relatively lightweight load out back can have a some 50% impact on your efficiency. That efficiency, well, every day all round, I've been averaging around 37 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, which is basically what Hunting was getting as well. Cruising 120 with Super Cruise on the highway, that figure is stretched up past 40 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. These figures run against GM's claimed NRCan figures of 30 kilowatt hours per 100 city and 35.6 highway. Combined, they report to NRCan a figure of 32.5 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. That then raises some eyebrows because General Motors makes some really big claims about the range out of this pickup truck, and they've been doing some really funny stuff with the numbers as well. Depends on the trim and the battery size and the power output specified, but here in the EV RST, GM claims 740 kilometers range. Now, GM remains cagey about its actual battery capacity, but from what we've managed to put together so far, it sounds like this thing uses a 213.7 kilowatt hour gross battery capacity, of which some 204 kilowatt hours are usable. Divided across those 204 kilowatt hours, that 740 kilometer range would suggest an economy figure of 27.5 kilowatt hours per 100, which, quite plainly, we aren't getting anywhere close to. And then, of course, we have to talk about that battery, because 213 kilowatt hours, that is enormous. That is obscene. That is almost twice what some of the largest batteries on the market are fitting in. Now, what does that mean for you as a consumer? It means more money. What does that mean for the planet? Well, that means a butt-ton more rare earth minerals. This is a very ecologically impactful car to build. Of course, no EV is perfect on this front. They all use quite a bit, but this just feels especially dirty. This is a Hummer in platform and very much so in the way it drives, but it also is a Hummer very much in spirit as well. Now, that big battery also has an impact on the vehicle's shape and dynamics. If you look at the side of this thing, you'll notice that it has running boards. If you look closer at those running boards, you'll notice that they're actually there as a bit of a visual trick. By putting them out as far as they do and as far down as they do, it actually sort of blocks your vision so that you don't see the additional several inches of battery mass underneath you. The bottom of this car just goes down so low and then so much lower. Ground clearance is actually not that great. Now, this top line obviously comes with, like in the Hummer, adaptive air suspension. It's got about 2 inches rise and drop in it, and it does help to mitigate that clearance, especially if you're trying to go on to a job site or something like that. With that being said, I've got to say that it's one of the slower systems I've ever seen. It takes close to a minute for this thing to go from height to entry-exit height. That's really slow. If you're driving about and then stopping quickly to drop someone off, and especially if that's for a kid or someone with mobility issues, that is going to be really difficult. It's a big vehicle. It's a huge vehicle. Those big 24-inch wheels may just look proportionate, may make it look normal sized, but when you actually remember that those are 24s, it sinks in that the front of this thing, especially at tall height, is up to my shoulders. This Silverado EV's curb weight is just shy of 9,000 pounds. That's heavy enough that your driveway slab may be in danger if it's not thick enough. This is an enormous vehicle, and like the Hummer, the fact that they've put party trick power into it to try to win over the skeptics is genuinely concerning. Electric power steering is easy, and in these top models with the rear steer, the vehicle does not feel quite as big as it actually is. With that being said, the rear steer does not shrink this as much as it does many other vehicles. It just sort of returns it to the realm of sort of normal-ish. Up there, we've got 330 liters front capacity, which is enough to fit a mid-sized General Motors Engineer into if you've got one around, or just whatever your normal cargo is. Driving it over the course of this week, though, I've noticed that it doesn't always respond to the remote buttons all that reliably, so you're generally going to need to reach into the dirty under bumper to click the button to close it. Out back, as we've got it equipped here, we've got GM's Multiflex tailgate, which can fold down in the middle and then again for a little step. I think that this is the sturdiest feeling of these gates, although it does come with a significant weight penalty. It is a hefty boy to fold up, and especially if you've got both of those down, it's an awkward bit of resistance. Also unfortunate with that gate is that instead of using little cables to keep it simple with that final stage of the step, GM continues to use this tight-fitting steel plate arrangement that just seems so vulnerable to rust as the vehicles age. Now, ahead of that tailgate is the Multiflex midgate, which is an option or equipped here on this top flight RST. It gives you a few possible configurations, and it is a neat highlight feature, although realistically, how frequently you're going to use it, well, that's hard to say. Possible configurations include pulling the glass out and slipping it into a seat back holder, so you've got sort of an airy convertible kind of vibe going. You can also put that glass back in, leave that tonneau cover on, for instance, and then fold the seats down and fold the inner doors down 60-40 or both together. And then you have almost like a secret tunnel underneath the tonneau. The bed here in the RST is 5'11", but with that down, it goes just shy of 11 feet. Of course, the ultimate configuration is to take the glass out, then flip that whole midsection down, and then you've got a full path to run a snowmobile into or what have you. Now, the snowmobile thing is fun, but it's worth noting that this is an EV. This isn't your old Chevy Avalanche. You are not going to be able just to blow the heat like you would have in the Avalanche without consequence. Yes, those angled blades down the side do help somewhat with keeping the wind out and keeping it from drawing too much air out of the cabin, but this remains a low pressure zone and you are going to have your hot air drawn out. Now, heat is of course a big energy draw in these EVs, and if you're going to try to run in -10, -20 with that open with a sled in the back, you are going to pay the price. Of course, most people are not going to use this to haul any loads statistically. Instead, this is going to be a family hauler, and set up as such, it'd be a pretty nice one. There's a lot of legroom back there. It's a really accessible rear end to get into if you're loading kids into car seats or just piling cargo in the back. The rear doors open a surprising amount. It's a great aperture with a great access angle. I will note that all of the doors on this feel a little bit heavy and stiff. You can't just sort of knock these and expect them to fall shut behind you. They'll usually get to about 3/4 the way shut, and then you'll realize you have to turn around and go actually close it the rest of the way. A little frustrating, obviously not the end of the world, but a little frustrating. So then, $120,000? Well, yes, it does technically have all the options. It's got all you could really want of a modern, well-equipped vehicle. But there's something about this that, whether it's the poor quality feel of the interior or just the general sort of confused air and the massive hulking weight of it, just doesn't quite feel right. Silverados are generally pretty good at being Silverados. They feel like they know what they are, they know what they're trying to do. This feels like it's just trying to be an EV, but doesn't quite know how to do that yet. Yes, huge 200 kilowatt hour battery is a novelty. Yes, it's also not nearly as green as anyone would like to delude themselves into thinking, and if you are trying to greenwash your conscience, this ain't it. It's worth noting that yes, you can look at the lower priced Silverado EVs priced from the high 60s. Those things will give you mid 600s of claimed range. Again, that's probably going to come in a lot shorter, especially after these efficiency ratings that we've observed. But you could also just get a proper Silverado at that price. And now, with EV mandates finally dialing back and everyone course correcting, that's probably going to be the sensible option too. GM has made an effort with this, and I've got to give them that. Yes, it's frustrating that there's no Apple CarPlay. Yes, it's way too big for a lot of people's lives, but it's an EV that drives like an EV. It does everything properly. It's even got some really neat and welcome innovations, like this Lyric-derived regen paddle that lets you make sure you're not wasting any kinetic energy on the friction brakes. It's read up on the theory of what an EV is supposed to be. It just seems like it needs a little more practice. For Driving.ca, I'm Al Alder. For more EV news, reviews, tests, checks, and all the rest, be sure to follow us online on Driving.ca and check out our socials.